For the past 3 months, I've been diving deep into learning as much as possible about Futures Literacy Labs. And yesterday, I facilitated my first one. And when you facilitate a workshop for the first time, that's time for reflection. The reason I'm making this video is because I'm documenting my journey of becoming a Futures facilitator, and I think it's nice to share my learnings as I go along. So what did I learn about facilitating my first Futures Literacy Lab? And what did participants think about the experience they had in this workshop? There were 3 aspects in the workshop that didn't go as planned. First, some participants had technical issues. They were using their mobile phones to log on to the session, and they had difficulties using Miro, the online whiteboard that I was using. One participant, for instance, couldn't fill out digital sticky notes. He had to use comments on the whiteboard to tell us about his thoughts. Second, I was quite nervous because it was my first time facilitating a Futures Literacy Lab, and I knew that the timing was really tight. So I always kept an eye on the clock, and I was conscious about this timing issue, and that meant that I didn't let participants speak as much as I should have. But let me give you a little bit of context first. Yesterday, I held my first Futures Literacy Lab. It was an online session and I used Miro as an online whiteboard. There was a relatively small number of participants, which was awesome because that way I wasn't overwhelmed with the sheer number of participants. I only had a time slot of 3 hours, which is really short for a Futures Literacy Lab, so I had to design a session that fitted within these 3 hours. I included the following 4 steps into the session, into the workshop. Step number 1 was thinking about preferred futures. Step number 2 about probable futures. Step number 3 was then making assumptions visible. And step number 4 was designing different alternative futures. I kicked off the workshop with an introductory exercise where each participant was meant to look for an image that represented the future of tourism in 2050. So yes, I did mention this before, but the topic of the workshop of the Futures Literacy Lab was the future of tourism. And when the participants presented their preferred future or their desirable future, I asked them to answer the following questions. Who are you? What brought you here? And what do you want to learn? The second question was, what does your image represent? And why did you choose it? As they shared glimpses of their preferred future of tourism in the year 2050, they shared quite a lot about themselves, about their dreams and their aspirations. So that was a good introductory exercise to the workshop. The next step in the lab was developing probable futures. This was a together alone exercise where participants first brainstormed on their own and then shared their results with the group for the group to add ideas, question certain ideas, etc. This is a really good type of working environment because everyone gets heard in that initial individual brainstorming stage, but at the same time you add sort of a group element as well. So alone but yet together, the group brainstormed ideas of what the future might look like if current trends continued. But what lies behind these probable futures? The next step was to uncover the assumptions that participants had in thinking about the future, because these assumptions limit the probable futures that we can imagine. That means that we need to find the opposites to these assumptions, and that was the next step in the process, developing opposites, and with these opposites as starting point, develop new alternative futures that were not possible before uncovering these assumptions. If you want to take a look at the Miro board I used in this workshop, I've added a link in the description below. Now let's talk about a few things that I would do differently next time and a few of the learnings that I'm taking away from this first workshop. And I hope that this is something of interest to some of you in the same position. Here's what I would do differently next time. I would send participants a link to a video that introduces Miro. And Miro has a number of different tutorial videos on YouTube where you can practice to navigate in Miro to make comments, etc. So that way participants can practice Miro, can see if they can access Miro on the device, whether that's a PC, a laptop, or a mobile phone. And hopefully that would resolve any technical issues at the beginning of the workshop. The other thing that I really need to do next time I hold a workshop like this is to ask questions and to listen and to acknowledge the answers that participants give me. Because I was stressed for time, I didn't really ask too many questions, because I was trying to usher participants through the process and to keep to the time limits that I had set myself. The important things about Futures Literacy Labs are the discussions that participants have. So by asking questions, hopefully you will get better discussions, or I will get better discussions. And by listening and acknowledging the answers, I incorporate participants into the results of the workshop. So I would spend less time thinking about the timing of the workshop and trying to usher participants through the workshops as fast as possible in order to keep to the time. And I would ask more questions, listen to the answers, and acknowledge these answers in order to incorporate the results that the participants came up with in the final results of the workshop. And still related to questions, but linking them to the assumptions, I would ask better questions in order to tease out the assumptions that participants have when thinking about probable futures. And this is really key for any Futures Literacy Labs. And that is my main learning from my first workshop. And we do this by asking reflective questions. So in the next Futures Literacy Lab that I'm doing, I'm going to ask the following questions. What do I believe for this particular issue? Why do I believe this? What if my assumptions on this issue are plainly wrong? And the last question is particularly important because it opens up our thinking to go beyond the first impulse we have about that particular issue. So these are the three things that I would do differently the next time I facilitate a Futures Literacy Lab. I would guide participants to using Miro much better before the workshop. I would ask more questions and let people answer these questions. And I would ask deeper questions to uncover the assumptions. Now, the question remaining is, what did the participants think about my first attempt at facilitating a Futures Literacy Lab? Well, because they were polite, they all said that they really enjoyed the process. It was a tough 3 hours with a lot of work involved by them, but they enjoyed working together. They enjoyed asking questions about the future. So looking back, I think it was a good first attempt at a Futures Literacy Lab with potential to improve much more in the second time round. So did participants enjoy the first Futures Literacy Lab that I facilitated? Yes, they did. They enjoyed working together. They enjoyed working on the topic of the future of tourism for about 3 hours. Now, that doesn't mean that there's nothing that I can improve, and I'll work on improving my facilitation skills for the next Futures Literacy Lab that I hold. So stay tuned to this channel and watch out for the next video.